Try to remember being a child, not the facts, the actual moments. Try to replay one ordinary afternoon from when you were 7 years old. For some people, a whole film comes back. For you, it's fragments. A patch of carpet, the smell of a certain kitchen, a feeling in a room you can't fully picture, a birthday with no scene around it, just the sense that it happened, flashes with the story deleted, and long stretches that are simply gone. And at some point you started to quietly wonder what that means. Why does everyone else seem to have a childhood they can scroll through like a photo album, while yours comes back in scattered pieces? You've probably been handed the easy answer. Memory just fades. You've got a bad memory. Don't overthink it. But that's not the whole truth, because a mind doesn't misplace an entire childhood by accident. If yours returns in fragments, that pattern is not a defect, it's a signature, and it points to 6 specific traits that people with smooth, detailed, continuous childhood memories very rarely have. One thing before we start, and I mean it sincerely, fragmented childhood memory is extremely common, and it does not automatically mean something terrible happened to you. It has many ordinary causes. This is about understanding your mind, not diagnosing it. Take whatever fits and leave the rest on the floor. So let's not bury the answer under 10 minutes of buildup. Let's go straight to the 6 traits. Trait 1. You live in the present, not the archive. Here's the first thing the fragments reveal. Some people carry a dense, detailed archive of their past, and a lot of them are quietly stuck in it, replaying, comparing, living in reverse. You don't have that heavy archive to sink into, and the same wiring that leaves your childhood in pieces often leaves you facing forward instead of backward. You tend to live in the now. You're not the person endlessly narrating old chapters. You're the person already in the next one. People sometimes read this as, you don't dwell, and they're right, but they miss why. You were never handed a thick book of the past to get lost in. So you learn to be here. That's not emptiness. For a lot of people that cost years of therapy to reach, and you arrived at it early without trying. You probably notice it in small ways. You're the one who's a little lost during those "remember when we were kids" conversations, nodding along while everyone else trades vivid stories. You don't collect nostalgia the way others do. When something ends, you tend to move on faster than the people around you, sometimes so fast it surprises them. That forward pull can look like detachment from the outside. From the inside, it's just where your mind naturally points, not back at what was, but ahead at what's next. In a world where so many people are quietly imprisoned by their own history, being built to face forward is not a small thing. It's a kind of freedom you've had so long you forgot it was rare. Trait 2. You remember in feeling, not in film. Notice what actually survives when you reach back. It's rarely the scene, it's the feeling. You can't tell me the details of a specific dinner, but you can tell me exactly how your childhood felt, safe or tense, warm or lonely, loud or quiet. That's not a coincidence. Memory researchers separate 2 systems: episodic memory, the specific, playable scenes, and semantic and emotional memory, which store meaning and feeling. Your episodic footage may be thin, but your emotional record is fully intact, often more intact than other people's, because feeling is the layer your mind chose to keep. You don't remember your childhood in pictures, you remember it in atmosphere, and that means you carry something most people can't access at all. Not the events, but the truth of how it all felt to be you. You felt this without naming it. A certain song comes on, or you catch a smell you can't place, and suddenly a whole wave of childhood arrives. Not a scene, a mood, complete and overwhelming, gone as fast as it came. You can walk into a building you've never seen and feel 8 years old for no reason you can explain. Other people trust their memories of what happened. You've learned to trust something deeper and harder to fool, your memory of how it felt. And that emotional record is a quiet superpower. It's why you can read a room in seconds, why you sense when something is off before anyone says a word. You spent a childhood storing feeling instead of fact, and it made you fluent in the one language most people never learn to read. Trait 3. You were a self-protective child. This one I'll say gently, because it matters. When a young nervous system is dealing with more than it can hold, and more than it can hold can be 100 ordinary things, not just the dramatic ones, the brain sometimes stops recording in smooth, continuous scenes and starts recording in fragments. Attention narrows. Only pieces get saved. Part of why is physical. The hippocampus, the brain structure that stitches experience into orderly memory, is sensitive to prolonged stress. So if childhood asked a lot of your younger self, your mind may have kept the memories in pieces rather than in one continuous, vivid story. Read that as what it is, not damage, protection. The fragmentation was your mind managing what a small version of you couldn't yet process. You didn't fail to remember. A younger you was kept safe. That's the opposite of broken. And that early training left something in you that shows up everywhere now. The child who learned to keep going while only half recording the hard parts often grows into the adult who stays strangely calm in a crisis. The steady one, the person others instinctively turn to when everything is falling apart. You can hold pressure that makes other people crumble, because holding pressure is a skill you started building before you could tie your shoes. That's the hidden inheritance here. The same protective wiring that scattered your memories also built a resilience most people have to spend decades learning. You were quietly made durable, not because life was easy, but because some part of you decided very early that you would be okay anyway, and you were. Quick pause, just for a moment. If you've recognized yourself even once so far, then you already know who this channel is built for. This is where we sit with the parts of the mind that no one else will slow down and explain. If that's what you've been quietly looking for, tap subscribe and stay with me, because the next 3 traits go deeper than the first 3, and I don't want you to miss where this ends. Trait 4. You built your inner world on your own. Here's something almost no one knows. Autobiographical memory isn't purely private. It's built socially. Children who grow up with adults who reminisce with them in rich detail. Do you remember the day we? Tell me what happened at. Develop more detailed, continuous memories of their own lives. That back and forth is the scaffolding a detailed childhood is built on. If that scaffolding was thin for you, if no one sat and helped you turn your days into a story, then you had to build your inner world largely by yourself. And you did. The cost was a sparser memory. The trait it produced is rare. You became your own narrator early, self-reliant in the deepest, quietest way, before you even had words for it. Independence like that isn't a personality quirk. It's something you were forged into. You've probably felt older than your age for as long as you can remember, like some part of you skipped a stage everyone else got to keep. You learned to soothe yourself, to figure things out alone, to be the adult in your own head long before it was fair to ask that of you. And it shaped the way you move through relationships now. You're often the one people lean on, the steady shoulder, the one who gives, while quietly finding it hard to lean back, to let anyone hold you. That's the double edge of this trait. The self-reliance is real strength, and it's genuine. But hear this part too. Needing people is not a failure of your independence. You were strong enough to raise your own inner world. You're allowed, now, to let someone in. Trait 5. You're a meaning maker. When your past comes back as themes and impressions rather than specific episodes, psychologists have a name for that shape of memory. Overgeneral memory, the tendency to recall the category of a period rather than one exact moment. And here's the reframe most people never hear. The same mind that struggles to store raw footage is often exceptional at extracting meaning. You don't hoard the details, you distill them. You remember what a whole era of your life meant, the pattern of it, the lesson underneath. While other people can recite exactly what was said at a dinner in 2004, you're the one who can tell them what that entire year of their life was actually about. You're not a recorder, you're an interpreter. In a world drowning in detail, the person who can find the meaning is rare, and it's you. This is why people come to you and leave feeling like something finally made sense. You're the friend who listens to a tangled mess of a story and hands back the one sentence at the center of it. You see the pattern in the group before anyone else does. You're drawn to the why underneath things, the theme, the through line, the shape of a whole situation, while others are still stuck arguing about the specifics. Detail people can tell you what happened. You can tell people what it means. And meaning is the rarer, more valuable thing. It's what turns experience into wisdom. Your mind traded the archive for the ability to understand. On the days you wish you could just remember more, remember that you were given the deeper half of the deal. Trait 6. You're not chained to a fixed past. Most people are anchored, sometimes trapped, by a thick, detailed story of who they've always been. Every old memory is a rope tying them to a fixed identity. This is who I am, because look at everything I remember being. You don't have that anchor in the same way. And it turns out memory was never as permanent as we assumed. Every time you recall something, it briefly becomes editable before it's stored again. You have less of a locked archive holding you to an old self, which means you are unusually free to reinvent, to change direction, to become someone your childhood would never have predicted. People spend their whole lives trying to escape the weight of who they were. You were handed a lightness they'll never have, fewer chains, more open road. You've probably lived this already. There may be people from your past who would barely recognize the person you've become. Whole versions of you left behind so completely they feel like different lifetimes. You don't feel bound by, "I've always been this way," because you don't carry a thick, detailed record insisting that you have. When you decide to change something about your life, you can actually do it, in a way that leaves others stunned. Yes, there's a lonely edge to this. Sometimes you feel a little unmoored, without the solid, continuous story of self that other people seem to stand on. But that same rootlessness is exactly what lets you grow in any direction you choose. Most people are a sequel, forever bound to the earlier books. You get to keep writing something new. That is not a loss. That is the rarest kind of freedom there is. Now, the part almost no one tells you, and it changes what those blank spaces even are. We talk about forgetting as deletion, as if your childhood was erased. But that's usually not what happened. Most of what feels lost isn't gone, it's unretrieved. The file exists, you're just missing the cue that opens it. That's why a single smell, a song, a particular light can suddenly hand you a memory you'd have sworn was gone forever. It was never deleted. It was waiting for the right key. And the deepest record of your childhood was never in the scenes anyway. It's in you, in the way your body relaxes or braces in certain rooms, in your reflexes, your comforts, your patterns in love and fear. You didn't lose your childhood. You are your childhood, written in a language older than words, carried in your nervous system instead of your photo album. So here's what that means for you, practically. Stop treating your mind like a broken hard drive you need to recover. You will never get the full film back, and chasing it only makes you feel more broken than you are. The work was never excavation. It's translation. Learning to read what your feelings, your reactions, and your body already know, instead of demanding the scenes that produce them. And because memory bends a little every time you revisit it, the relationship you build with your past now, with more safety, more understanding, more gentleness than you had access to back then, quietly reshapes how the whole thing sits inside you. You can't rewind the tape. But you were never only the tape, you're the one holding it, in the present, with the power to decide what it means from here. So the next time you reach back and find only fragments, I don't want you to feel like something's missing in you. Those fragments are the fingerprints of a mind that protected you when you were small, that kept the feeling when it let go of the film, that faces forward instead of drowning in the past, that built its own inner world, that reads life for meaning instead of trivia, and that is freer than most people will ever be to become someone new. 6 traits, 1 quiet mind, and not one of them is the mind of someone who's broken. They're the marks of someone who was shaped early and shaped deep. You spent years thinking the empty spaces meant something was wrong with you. Look again. Every blank was doing a job. Every fragment was a choice your younger self made to keep you standing. You were never missing a childhood. You were carrying it differently, in feeling, in your body, in the person it quietly turned you into. If some of the pieces that ever surface feel heavy to hold, there's no weakness in talking them through with someone you trust, or a professional. This channel is for reflection, not a replacement for real support. Be gentle with the parts of you that were once too young to be. You didn't invent that survival wiring. You inherited it. Carved into us by ancestors who survived the cold, the hunger, the dark, the hunt. If that pulls at you the way it pulls at me, there's a channel I want you to know about, Back Times, all about how ancient humans actually survived. Go subscribe to Back Times and press the bell icon so their next one finds you. But if this felt like it was describing you, specifically, not in general, then you already know what this channel is for. This is the mind beneath the silence, and we come here every week to understand the things no one else will sit with you long enough to explain. So subscribe and stay a while. There's still so much more of you left to understand.